The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
Okay, let's go.
All right, so, I judge people on their actions and then I judge people on their reactions. Oh, man. Ray D dropping some nuggets of insight. No, anyway, in all seriousness, I wanted to start off today. Gosh, what a hectic day yesterday with the impeachment of House Leader Kevin McCarthy. And I'm going to start off today with exactly that. I judge people on their actions and I judge people on their reactions. And so I spent a good part of yesterday after taping the episode, I was watching different things and I was watching different news sources. I would flip between Fox and CNN. I'd also go on to YouTube. I'd look at, YouTube creators that I like and quite frankly, some that I don't like. And I wanted to hear what they had to say about things. And so today I'm going to talk a little bit about all of that and kind of give you some thoughts. But before I start doing that, I'm actually going to give a shout out, and also more importantly than a shout out, I really just had an amazing conversation with a very, very good friend from high school, Len Spacek, number 22. If you knew us in high school at Hawken or another school, and Lenny and I have been really, really good friends since our sophomore year, and we are talking about a couple other things. And, one thing he said to me, which I really appreciated, was he said that, hey, I don't really, follow politics or any of that stuff, but listening to your podcast makes me think about stuff. And that was fantastic. Another thing he asked me, which was very insightful, he said, hey, what was your vision for this when you started? And I think I've talked about it before, but I'm going to start reinforcing that because it is very important to stay true to whatever vision it is that you are having for whatever aspect. And for me, my vision when I started this was to become a place where, again, through the lens of common sense, we can talk about what is going on in society currently, as well as then, because we're now looking at things through a different lens, this lens of common sense, coupled with calling a spade a spade. Honestly, I really love those two lines, the lens of common sense and calling a spade. It now has made me go back to revisit certain other situations because something I never thought anything of now has a totally different meaning for me or meaning to me. And I'll give you two great examples. I know that the John F. Kennedy assassination is been talked about to nauseum, and there's a million takes on it and a million everything. But I will tell you, for me personally, I never knew much about the story besides that he was assassinated. And what caused me to want to go back and basically revisit that, or actually visit that, because I've never really visited it, is because I do have a different mentality about the world. I do have a different lens about the way I look at the things that are taking place because of what's happened since 2020, and even dialed back when I really analyzed things since 2016. And so, revisiting something like JFK, if I had done that in 2019, I probably would not have looked at it with the depth, or again, sorry to keep using the word lens, but I wouldn't have looked at it through the lens of, okay, could this been accomplished or done for other reasons, such as getting back into the Vietnam War? He was getting us out of the Vietnam War. So could this have been done by the powers that be, quote unquote, whoever those people might be, because they realized, hey, this guy's not playing ball with us. We want to put money into the military industrial complex. I know that episode's coming. Don't worry. But again, you see what I mean? It's like now, because of the way I look at things, revisiting stuff from the past. Or another great example, and it's a little closer to home or closer to time, the Bernie's Blackout episode that I did, which talked all about how Bernie Sanders, if you haven't listened to that episode, I would really recommend you go back and listen to it, because that Bernie Sanders 2020 election, and I still need to do the prequel for 2016, but that 2020 election, if you go back and listen to that, or if you haven't listened to that episode and go listen to it, you'll realize it just doesn't add up. Like, what took place does not add up. At the end of the day, Bernie was so far ahead. Biden wasn't even on the map. And then a series of events happened. I mean, again, it could be just totally random, but maybe it's not totally random. And so my vision for Deep Shallow Dive, and I'm so glad Len asked me this, is to really try and apply common sense and search for the truth. And at the end of the day, if we find the truth, maybe we won't even do anything different. Maybe we won't even do anything with that truth. But you know what? We deserve to have that truth. And for me, it's funny, I have certain people ask me, like, why do you do this? Honestly, part of it is like my ego. I'm not going to lie. And my ego, what I mean by that is my ego makes me think, you know what? I'm not going to let anybody pull the wool over my eyes. Again, even if I come up with my version or my truth, I might not even do anything with that, but at least I have the peace of mind to know, all right, you know what? That thing that happened, hey, I figured it out and whatever. I mean, chances are most things, it's not like I'm going to try and change that or attack it or anything along those lines. But, again, it's more just realizing that at the end of the day, everything that's going on, similar to that Steve Jobs little 1-minute speech I attached at the end of one of my episodes. I can't remember which one now. But to quote him, he said, as soon as you realize everything that you use in your life was made by some other person who is no smarter than you, life becomes a whole different thing. And I'll apply that to social issues, politics, everything. I'll apply that to the Deep Shallow Dive. And as soon as I realized that everything taking place, whether I agreed with it or not, and really the ones that I don't agree with, they're being generated and created and established definitely by people no smarter than me, but they're being done by other people. And so when other people are doing things no different than if I would do something, honestly, there is bias. There is narratives. There is a motive, like there's greed, there's gluttony, there's all of that stuff. All of that stuff is possible, but we've been so ingrained and trained to think, for example, if we see it on TV, it's got to be true. If we read it in a newspaper, it's got to be true. And then even a step further, if we see it on the internet, online, in a, xyz.com, it's got to be true. But remember, everything we see on TV, everything we read in a newspaper, everything we see on a website and then extend it to everything we see on social media, which I almost classify as a separate category than the internet, all of that stuff is also being created by other human beings who might, and I'll say might, they might have agendas. They might have narratives. They might have things that they're trying to accomplish. That's what a lobbyist is. What is a lobbyist in Washington, D.C.? The amount of money that is spent on lobbying efforts. Again, something none of us really thought about, but the amount of money that is spent on lobbying is insane. I'll try and find an exact amount to quantify the term insane, but there's a lot of money that special interest groups and other groups pay people who make a career out of lobbying politicians and people in government agencies and roles in order to shape policy or pass laws or create things that are in the benefit of those people paying them. Let me say that again. Create things that are in the benefit of those people that are paying them. So it's a financial transaction. Oh my God, this conversation with Lenny I thought was going to be a quick shout out, and it's going to practically take up this entire episode. But that's okay, because it was really important. And I love that he asked me what my vision was, because I think it is time to, check back in on all this. And I'm going to try and stay true to my vision and maybe reinforce my vision, on multiple episodes. And, when it comes to politics, again, I want to make sure people understand. I am not some big political guy. And it's funny. He said, I didn't think a lot of your episodes would be about politics. And I was like, you know what, dude? I didn't either. I really didn't. When I started out with this, I thought, it would be maybe 25% politics and 75% the other stuff. And now I'm realizing it's kind of flipped, but I am going to commit to, getting back to covering, other topics that I'm super interested in, such as the JFK thing, TikTok, talking about more AI stuff. I still have my episodes coming up that delve into the petrodollar, delve into the military-industrial complex. But even these topics, it's funny. You can probably connect them back to what's going on in politics today. It's almost like politics today is the new Kevin Bacon. It's 6 degrees of politics today, no longer 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. Anyway, the last thing I'll say about my conversation with Lenny is there's nothing like old friends. There really isn't. God, I feel like they just don't make them like they used to when it comes to friendships. And we talked about this as well, and I did want to throw this out there because I know this has happened to some of you. The past several years since 2020, and again since 2016, and I keep referring to 2016 because that's when Trump went into office, and that's when I started to see a change in everything. I want to say, I know a lot of people have lost friendships over this stuff. They've lost friendships over the love or hate for Trump. They've lost friendships over, the COVID stuff with wearing masks, not wearing masks, getting vaccinated, not getting vaccinated. Now, the support of, various social issues versus thinking they're politicized social issues. There's so many things that have caused division and distraction. And what I would ask you is, don't lose friendships over that stuff. Come on. Somebody that you've known since high school, college, post-college, somebody that you've built equity with, somebody that you've built relationships with, built memories with. Don't throw that stuff all away. And if you have thrown it away, which I know has been the case, because I know of friends that have ruined friendships over this stuff because I've tried to mediate that back. seriously, like think about that, and maybe think about patching that up, or at least trying to patch it up, because it's not worth it. It's not. People have thrown away, I know families that have like come into family strifes that now they no longer talk to their brother or their sister. I've got one friend, he doesn't talk to his parents anymore. And I won't give up on him either. I really won't. Every time we talk, I visit the subject, even though it's uncomfortable, and he doesn't want me to ask about it anymore, but I do. And I told him, I said, dude, unless you're going to cut me off, I'm going to ask about this all right. I had to stop the mic because I got emotional, because one of the things I tell him about is like, dude, you still have your dad. Like, I don't have my dad anymore. And you still have yours. And you're not talking to him because in their case, he supports Trump and you don't. And you let that ruin your relationship with your dad? All right, sorry about that. All right, I cut the mic again, and maybe I'll edit that part out, but maybe not. Anyway, yeah, seriously, just, man, this episode went in crazy directions. But you know what? That's all good. And I keep saying, this is when you know I'm off my game a little, or at least I'm thrown off a little, because I normally don't say, I don't have to edit that out. I will tell you what I do edit out a lot is I've learned I smack my lips a lot like that. And that is not good for a podcast, so I do edit that out. All right, you know what? I'm going to call it. I was going to get into the Kevin McCarthy stuff. I have a lot of interesting takes and opinions on that, and I wanted to share, more importantly, how this episode started, which was judging people on their actions and reactions. And I wanted to play for you and read you some of the things Kevin McCarthy reacted, because I am judging him on those, because I didn't like the way he reacted. And for somebody that I really didn't have an opinion on, I mean, I guess I kind of did, but not really. I really didn't have that much of an opinion on him. His reactions to the situation, that shaped my opinion on him. And I'll say it's not that favorable, And then I went and listened to, like I said, so many people on the Republican side, on the Democrat side. I listened to personalities. I read a bunch of stuff on social media, comments from the American people underneath comments from personalities, and those are really interesting. So I'll read some of those for you in the next episode. I think I am a little emotionally drained on this one, but anyway, just wanted to again thank everybody for listening. I truly do appreciate it. And this was raw. This was a raw episode, and it is what it is. It is what it is. So, all right, call a spade, even on yourself, which I try to do on myself as well. And we will talk to you soon.
This episode was brought to you by Boost Liquid Vitamins. Wake up, take your Boost, start your day. Drink your vitamins, build your immune system with Boost. Available on Boost.com.